ATP, what it do? With your boy Clay Rain. Salute to all my subscribers. If this is your first time tapping into the content, I do invite you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit your bell icon as well, so you're all getting alerts when all this content is dropping. So last night, Chris Colbert, Cold Butter, gave it another go again at 135 against Omar. What's my guy's name? Salido? What is it? Omar Salcido Gamez? A fighter underneath the Jose Benavidez senior stable of fighters. And him and Chris Colbert go at it last night. Looking, and what were we looking for in this fight with Chris Colbert, right? So you have two parts. You have what were you looking at last night, and what were you looking for last night? Well, I would say if you're a Chris Colbert fan and somebody who's trying to see Chris Colbert make a redemption move from his last fight against Jose Rayo Valenzuela, you would say that, okay, what was he doing wrong in that fight, right? What were the things that he was doing that was uncharacteristic of him, of who we think he's supposed to be and what he's supposed to look like if he's being successful in the ring in comparison to what was in that ring? And what we saw was a fighter who stood there inside of that mid-range way too long. He stayed there too long and just didn't have the power. He didn't have the power that was going to translate into that making sense, right? Into discouraging somebody like Rayo Valenzuela from rushing him, right? From running over him, from overwhelming him with power. And what did you see last night? What we saw last night was we saw some glimmering shadows of the old Chris Colbert moving around the ring, boxing, things of that nature, outscoring, hitting, making a miss, right? But then for the most part, it came back to the same thing again, where Chris Colbert ended up back on his high guard, usually back against the ropes, and where you got a puncher literally letting off combination shots from the body back up to the head, from the head back down to the body, uppercuts going between his guard, hurting him, clipping him, and honestly just looking like if the longer the fight was going to go, that the closer Chris Colbert was coming to having a repeat of what happened between him and Rayo. It was almost as if it was like a nightmare, a replaying nightmare, a Hedgehog Day type of situation, right? Or Groundhog Day, is that what it is? I'm sorry, Groundhog Day type of situation, to where it was just the same movie getting repeated, just a different fighter staying in front of it, and ultimately led up to this right here. Right? Led up to this right here.
Incredible.
Let's take a look at it.
Zoo was able to sit down with the champs. Check it out. Robox TV, our YouTube channel. Great interview.
That was a great interview. Paulie and I had a lot of fun talking with Tim, talking about old fighters, talking about his father.
Right? Led up to that. Led up to the same situation where his corner is sitting there begging him, pleading with him to get his back off the ropes, but this time with a little bit more determination, a little bit more focus on we're not going to let what played out the last time play out this time. We're actually going to stop this fight if you don't show us signs of this changing, of this ending up heading in a different direction, right? And ultimately ended up happening, right? That was at the end of round 7. They allowed round 8 to come by, allowed him to give a shot at round 8 for him to kind of figure it out. He really didn't figure it out in that round as well. I mean, all considering, he kind of boxed a little bit in that round, obviously survived, didn't get stopped, but looked like he was kind of on the same trip. But he was given a warning again, and ultimately what ended up happening, right? What ended up happening is this, right?
Yes. I get called a Mexican hater. So for the record, guys, I got Salcido winning the fight so far. Well, listen, people got from that's it. Wow.
Well, what do you see? You see him against the ropes again, and ultimately his corner throwing the towel in like they said they would. Was Chris Colbert hurt? Was he on his way out on his feet? Was he knocked out on his feet? No, he wasn't. But there seems to be a problem with Chris Colbert following instructions, or maybe his ability to carry out the instructions, to carry out the game plan. And to protect him his corner is going to have to do what he has to do, and that's the number one priority. In many ways, you have to celebrate that corner for ultimately pulling the plug on something that looked like it was getting ready to go in a very negative direction. So that being said, where do we move forward with Chris Colbert, being that Chris Colbert has now pretty much been stopped twice in a row, the same issue. Seems like he's disconnected with his corner. Even in that prior video you saw when Chris Colbert was in the corner and his corner was letting him know what was going to happen, he seemed more concerned about getting sweat wiped out of his eyes, right? He was just deflecting at that point. You just kind of can see on his face the disconnect and the lack of interest in what the corner is telling him to do. So what's the next move for Chris Colbert? Well, Chris Colbert has already been out publicly saying that this was going to be his last fight at 135, that he wants to make a move back down to 130 pounds. He feels that's where he's more comfortable at. That's where his power can translate. He feels like 135 might just be a little bit too much for him at the present moment. Keeping in mind, year or 2 years ago, people were trying to actually speak about Chris Colbert ending up in the ring with the Gervonta Tank Davis, right, at 135. But after that Hector Garcia loss, obviously, that came off the table, and that's how I think we ended up seeing Hector Garcia being a late replacement for Rolly Romero against Gervonta Tank Davis. But Chris Colbert, once again, a lot of promise in the beginning of his career. Young B-Hop was supposed to do big things in his career. A lot of people feel like he's been a little too arrogant, right? A little too concerned with showboating and talking and looking like he's somebody he's not, and he hasn't been delivering in the ring. And this fight right here ended up being on Pro Box, where this was going to be his last chance at doing something significant in the game and getting back on track, potentially getting himself back in the conversations of fighting some of the big fights that are out there for somebody like him, right? But it doesn't seem like that's where it's going to be for Chris Colbert right now. So what's the next move for Chris Colbert? Well, if Chris Colbert goes down to 130 pounds, he's still going to have to deal with some punchers down there, right? He's going to have to deal with the likes of a Raymond Ford, who just made his move from 126 to 130, who in his own right is a puncher, right? He's going to have to deal with the Oshaki Fosters, the Lamont Roaches. We know Lamont Roach has a fight as he's going up to 135 to challenge Gervonta Tank Davis for his WBA lightweight title. He's going to have to deal with the likes of Emmanuel Navarrete, right? Even the Stephen Fulton, who's in that division right now. Is Stephen Fulton in the 130? You know what? I might be wrong. Stephen Fulton might have decided to stay at 126. I think he decided to stay at 126. But regardless, he was trying to move to 130. But he's definitely going to have to deal with some punchers. He's going to have the same situation, in my opinion, just dealing with guys who are potentially faster. What does Chris Colbert do? How does he look like? What does he look like in that division? Is this a champion, a future champion at 130 pounds? Is this just just going to be a journeyman? Is this going to be somebody who's just a dancing partner? I mean, one thing he showed last night, he's willing to get punched on, right? That he's not going to run around and run away, and to his own detriment. That can help deliver for exciting fights against the right fighters. But how good is that on Chris Colbert's health, right? And how can he get back on a winning streak? It's got to be the bigger question, because if he's going to compete in a sport where his life is on the line, you would think he wants to compete at a high level, but be able to compete at a high level, not just compete at a high level just because his name gets in there. But you'd like to think if he got in the ring with high level competition that he can hang in there. And last night's performance just kind of showed that he's kind of digressed, right? He's regressed, in a lot of ways. So we'll be looking forward to see what Chris Colbert puts together. Like I said, got stopped last night in round 9. Looks like he was not really present mentally to the task at hand that him and his corner worked on, and it is what it is. Moving on and segueing, because funny enough, Jose Benavidez Sr., who Omar Salcido was his actual fighter, got a victory last night, a big victory last night, right? And we know that Jose Benavidez Sr. doesn't just train boxers, he's also a manager of boxers. In particular, one particular boxer who just became a lightweight, just became a super lightweight or junior, junior welterweight, WBA champion in Rayo, Venezuela. And late last night, Rayo Venezuela came out on social media and put a statement out. And in the statement, as you guys can see on your screen, it says, "Hey, everyone, hope you are all doing good. Just want to clear up some things I've been hearing lately about my next fight. But I'm no longer in a managing or training relationship with Jose Benavidez Sr. or his team. It's time to move forward. Stay tuned for more announcements of my next fight. It's coming soon." And we got to assume that's a fight that he has a rematch clause with Isaac Cruz, so we'd assume that's going to be the fight. But Jose Benavidez Sr. seemed to be caught off guard by that information, responding and basically coming out on interviews. And this morning was on Boxing Voice explaining how discouraged he was about what happened, that he found out while he was in Florida, obviously coming off of a great victory last night from Chris Colbert with one of his fighters in his stable, and explained that, you know, he would appreciate a phone call, that this was really diabolical in the way that it's panned out. He's never seen anything like that. He didn't see it coming. He got no warning. He found out at the same time the whole entire social media place found out, and he was just really discouraged, right? Discouraged, and to be honest with you, just disappointed in the way Rayo Venezuela carried and handled it. And it does kind of look bad from the outside looking in. Just visually, this aesthetically doesn't look right. It just looks like Rayo might have been able to handle this in a better way, reaching out directly to Benavidez Sr., communicating his issues that he had, how he was uncomfortable with the way the relationship was working, and how he was interested in moving forward in a different direction. You know, thank him for getting him there. Keep in mind that Rayo Venezuela has been with the story is Rayo Venezuela has been with Jose Benavidez Sr. since he was 17 years old. What, today, Rayo Venezuela is like 25 years old. So we're talking about 8 years of history there, a relationship that Jose Benavidez Sr. spoke on and said this morning on the Boxing Voice. Shout out to Ness and the Boxing Voice, stated that, you know, he was like a son to him. You know, granted, Rayo Venezuela has a father who's present in his life and doing his job, and he's a supportive father. But the relationship that they built was more of a father-son relationship as far as Jose Benavidez Sr. Was concerned, and he was really shocked at the way things turned out, that it would end up being like this on social media, and that he'd have to be out here answering questions without even having any real perspective or understanding of where this came from. From his point of view, that he was completely in the dark about Rayo Venezuela being uncomfortable with the situation or not being happy with the relationship. He even mentioned that there was a point in time when Rayo Venezuela decided to, you know, leave him as far as a trainer relationship was concerned and move on to Robert Garcia, that he told Rayo Venezuela, listen, maybe I should just give your contract back, your management contract back. Go ahead and hand it over to Robert Garcia's team or somebody else. I don't want you feeling like you're held up. And, you know, according to Jose Benavidez Sr., Rayo Venezuela communicated that, no, he wanted to keep the management situation. He wants to be represented by the Benavidez team. He just is training somewhere else. And Jose Benavidez Sr. obviously thought that was great news, obliged to the arrangement, and, you know, just to see it come full circle to a point where on social media, Rayo Venezuela is delivering this message. Well, Rayo Venezuela responded very quickly and stated that he's lying. He said he received a letter from my lawyer 6 days ago. I'm going to assume the again was a go, is what the word he's looking to put there. So let's just say he says he received a letter from my lawyer 6 days ago in his email to his home address and to his gym. So that's 3 different locations. Jose Rayo Venezuela feels like he did let him know that he's been known that he was feeling like this. And I don't know if it makes a big deal one way or the other. Like I said, from the outside looking in, obviously, aesthetically, it's not pleasing. It's not something you want to see. But I think the underlying foundation to this whole situation is that at some point, Rayo Venezuela was uncomfortable, did not like something that was going on. And people might say, oh, maybe he's leaving the PBC because he's leaving Jose Benavidez, or he's having these issues. And we don't know. Maybe he is leaving the PBC. Maybe he has other offers he's dealing with. I would assume a lot of offers are going to be on the table for a champion. He just become a champion off a great performance, off a Riyadh season a few weeks back, or back in August. And look, at the end of the day, a lot of people, I'm sure, are knocking on his door, right? But we won't ever know actually what's going on. But we can, I think it's reasonable to assume that Rayo Venezuela at some point was unhappy with the way Jose Benavidez Sr. was carrying his business. Jose Benavidez Sr. seems to be making it clear that he's unaware of why he would be upset. I'm hearing all kind of rumors and speculations about different things that Jose Benavidez Sr. might have said that doesn't align with what Rayo Venezuela wants to represent for himself. We'll never really know, right? But what's the next move now, I guess, for Rayo Venezuela? He's now not managed by Jose Benavidez Sr. Is he being managed by Robert Garcia's team? If he is being managed by Robert Garcia's team, one could question what his relationship with the PBC might look like at this point. I don't know if Robert Garcia has any PBC fighters out there. You know, generally Robert Garcia's fighters seems to be either on Golden Boy or seem to be on Matchroom. Like you got Bam Rodriguez on Matchroom. You got obviously you got Virgil Ortiz on Golden Boy. You've got other fighters there, I believe, on Golden Boy too. If I'm correct, I believe Jose, what's the guy who's supposed to be fighting Arnold Barbosa, and Arnold Barbosa is another Golden Boy fighter, but not one of Robert Garcia's fight. I'm trying to remember his name. Oh God, I can't remember his name on top of my head, but he has fighters there at Golden Boy, obviously, and a fighter at Matchroom. I don't think he has any fighters at the PBC. So if Robert Garcia is now managing, what does that look like for Rayo Venezuela's relationship with the PBC? Time will tell that story. Maybe it doesn't affect anything. Maybe this is just a personal thing between Rayo Venezuela and Jose Benavidez Sr. and the PBC just be working with Robert Garcia at this point. We don't know, right? We don't know. Interesting enough, though. Well, you guys let me know in the comment, was Rayo Venezuela out of pocket? Is this a good move or a bad move for Rayo Venezuela? Is this going to help him expand in his career? Is he making a good move as far as a fighter who's going to the next level and the next chapter of his career? How does that look? Do you guys expect him to stay with the PBC, or does this have nothing to do with it at all? And as far as Chris Colbert is concerned, please leave it in a comment section, because I'm really interested in how the space feels about Chris Colbert as a boxer at this point in his career. Is he about done? Should he hang up the gloves? Is he now just going to be a stepping stone, right? A gatekeeper, somebody who, when you want your new young fighter to make a move and make a statement in the space, you have a Chris Colbert who will be a great dancing partner? Or is there still hope for him? Is he still one of those guys? Does he still have that boxing IQ that we all remember he had years ago, early in his career, the things that told us and made us believe that this kid had a great and bright future in boxing? Let me know what you think in the comment. It's your boy Claymore Rain. Once again, shout out to all my subscribers. I really appreciate you guys. If this is your first time tapping into the content and you got anything from it, look, hit the subscribe button, hit your bell icon as well. Very important, so you are getting alerts when these videos and this content is dropping. And that's about it, guys. You know how we carry it. We was in, but at this point, we out.